Welcome to the So You Missed Church podcast. We are happy to have you here with us today. Happy Monday to you. My name is Clint Daly, and I'm hoping that we're going to help you get your week started in a positive way. Last week, we discussed what church is specifically meant to be. We've also talked about why people go to church. We've discussed why some refuse to attend a church. And we've talked a little bit about what this podcast is meant to be. Because this podcast is not a church. It isn't meant to be a church. I'm hoping that it will be more of a Bible study to teach, encourage, challenge, and maybe reach people that either can't or just won't attend church. Or just in case you missed it and didn't get to attend, or maybe you just needed a little boost at the start of your week. We release these podcasts every Monday, but of course, you can listen to them whenever it fits your schedule. Now, there is no video with this podcast, although you can listen to it on YouTube, because to be very honest, I don't want the visual distraction. I want the words that I'm saying to go directly to your mind so that you aren't distracted by what you might see. Now, maybe you've been listening to the past 3 weeks, or maybe this is your first time listening to the podcast. It doesn't really matter. But you might be wondering, who is this guy talking? And what possible credentials does he have to even host such a podcast like this one? Is he a pastor? Is he a priest? Is he a reverend? No, I am not. I did not attend seminary. I was not even a Bible major in college. In fact, my professional background is not in church service in any capacity. My background is actually in the world of sports. I was a high school basketball coach for a number of years. I was a sports columnist following my coaching career. And that actually led to a brief sports radio show. And since then, I've hosted a sports podcast now for over a decade. Now, maybe you hear that and you're reaching for the stop and the unfollow button on your listening device. Hold on. Give me just a second. Because my background growing up was immersed in the church. I was raised in what many would label, I guess they would call it, an old school fundamentalist hellfire and brimstone church. Now, I know you might hear that and you think, okay, well, you went to church on Sundays like many people did. Well, it was a little more than that. See, my father was an elder in the church. My mother ran the nursery. And I was in services at a bare minimum 3 times a week. In addition to that, I was also raised in a very strict Christian school with a heavy emphasis on theology and a heavy emphasis on the Bible. Now again, you may be hearing all this and you might be reaching again for that stop and unfollow button on your device, but hold on, just give me one more minute. While our church and our school were very strict and very, I guess you'd say, legalistic, and sometimes not actually all that practical, to be honest. I mean, I think back to my school career. I couldn't have passed even a basic world geography class. However, I could quote you scripture and verse as to the many places that Jesus spoke, where Moses led the Israelites, and where Paul's many travels took him. But while there were many aspects to my church and my school that I struggled with and even pushed back against, one thing that I have always treasured was this. In my church or school, there was never a, we'll just take my word for this attitude about our core beliefs. No, it was always, hey, go study things for yourself. You need to go read it for yourself. Don't trust me to tell you. And I actually believe that attitude serves me very well to host this podcast. And bizarrely, I actually think my coaching background serves me well here too. See, as a coach, you are constantly doing a few things. You are constantly teaching. You are constantly motivating. And maybe more importantly, you are constantly looking for solutions to whatever problems that you may encounter. Okay, so you might be listening right now and saying, okay, but how are you going to be telling me anything about God or religion, well, again, I would ask you to give me a little more leniency there, just out of the pure goodness of your heart. Because trust me, I will be learning right along with you. And I would also like to remind you that if you are looking for someone to teach these things that doesn't have flaws, of which I admittedly have many, then you're going to be waiting for a really, really long time. Because there isn't a human on earth that doesn't have their flaws. I don't care if they're a priest. I don't care if they're a pastor. I don't care if they're a reverend. We all have our flaws. None of us are perfect. And I would also like to remind you that God has a history of using people that many would deem as very, very flawed. Think back to the Bible. Abraham was way past his prime. Elijah may have been suicidal. Joseph had been abused. Moses had a speech problem. Naomi was a widow. Mary of Magdala had been demon-possessed. Peter was easily misguided. Paul actually persecuted the very people that he would end up becoming. The fact is, there is no one on this planet that is without flaws. And you know what? That shouldn't be discouraging to us at all. It should encourage us that we too can be used for very, very big things. I encourage you to continue this journey here with us at SYMC Church. And like I say every week, if you're struggling with a certain aspect, or you would like a certain subject addressed, feel free to email us at umschurch@gmail.com. We do want to be a source of help to you. We want to be a source of encouragement to you. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on X at umschurch. You can also follow us over on YouTube and listen to the podcast there. If you get a chance, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating and a review. It might help us get seen by a few more people and we can grow this a little bit more. I wish you all a very happy Monday, and I hope that you have a great week.